Very good morning to all of you. First session for today delivery, that is innovative pedagogy. So before start this particular session, I would like any of the member from the group to respond that what we mean by pedagogy.
Ma'am, in a basic word, it's like method of teaching and the way of teaching practices.
So thank you very much, ma'am. Very rightly added by ma'am. When it comes to pedagogy, it is the method of teaching, and in a larger sense, it's an art of teaching. So when we are saying that it's an art of teaching, and we understand there are variety of teachers and there are variety of students who are working in teaching learning environment. So maybe as a teacher, when I entered into my class and I have a group of students, they may have different kind of expectations from me, and as a faculty, when another teacher of my department enter in the same class with the same student population, they may have different kind of expectation from that particular faculty. So those expectations vary. So the expectations vary depending upon the level of the student. It also depends upon the nature of the subject that I'm going to teach. It also depends upon that how I'm going to teach, and it also depends upon that over the period of time what kind of experiences my student may have with me. So there are many components that involve into pedagogical practices, and when I'm saying it's the art of teaching, as a teacher, what kind of creation I'm doing into my class. As a teacher, when I'm involving my students in the process of teaching and learning, what flavor, what exposure, what kind of experiences I'm going to give to them. So depending upon that, my pedagogical approach may vary from the other teachers or the other faculty members in my department or maybe in different departments. So today, when we are talking about the innovative pedagogical approaches at large, so in this one session I will provide you the overview. So when we are talking about the different kind of innovative pedagogical approaches, it is not applicable to all the teachers at the same time. Every teacher may have some sense of the pedagogical approaches, and another teacher may select a different method or a different approach to teach to the student. So as far as the literature in the field of pedagogy is concerned, it is said that there are 101 teaching methods available. So it is depending upon the comfort and order of the teacher. It also depends upon the level of the student. It also depends upon the nature of the subject, that what teaching method is more appropriate for you as a teacher, or what pedagogical approach is more appropriate for you as a teacher when we are using or selecting the different kind of pedagogical approaches. So with this note, we are going to start with our session on pedagogy. So when it comes to the pedagogy, and we said that it is an art of teaching, as a teacher, when it comes to an art of teaching and I have to learn this art as a teacher, I need to understand that what are the different actors involved into it. So when I'm saying what are the different actors involved into it, in any teaching learning environment, these are the four major pillars of that environment. The very first one is the teacher, the second is the medium, third is the message, and fourth is the students. So when it comes to using this art of pedagogy, the very important element in pedagogical aspects is the communication. So when it comes to a communication, and specifically for a classroom communication, to know about this particular art, I must need to understand that when I'm communicating with my student, it is the instructional message that I'm delivering. So when I'm delivering this instructional message, I'm using my verbal as well as non-verbal communication. So my students are getting messages not only from the verbal delivery, but at the same time, when I'm passing my message, or I want my student to understand the content that I'm going to deliver, my students are getting those messages from the non-verbal behavior also. So when it comes to an innovative pedagogical approach, as a teacher, the first thing that I need to work is my communication skills. So when it comes to the communication skill, as a teacher, you need to decide how much you need to communicate. So as a teacher, I need to understand that there may be a different kind of learning environment. So as a teacher, when I'm saying how much I need to communicate, it depends upon the nature of the subject. So if it is a practical kind of a subject, my student needs to have more opportunity as far as hands-on experiences are concerned. When I'm delivering a theoretical lecture, there may be chances that most of the time I'm speaking to my student or I'm delivering information to my students because that information is new to them and I want them to go through that information in detail, and my students are listening to that information. And when I'm designing for my class, if there is a two-way communication happening in a classroom environment, somewhere it is possible for me that students are able to understand that what I am delivering, because there is a dialogue that is happening all the time in a classroom environment. So when it comes to the innovative pedagogical approach, the first factor that we need to understand here is that as a teacher I need to communicate well with my student before deciding any teaching method or before deciding any teaching media that I'm going to use in my classroom environment. The context of communication, first factor that we all need to decide that how the communication is going to happen in a class. As a teacher, we also create humor in a class. As a teacher, there must also be story illustrations in a class. As a teacher, when I'm delivering the messages related to instruction, those must be in a structured form, in a structured nature, so that student have a thorough understanding that what they are going to cover under a particular topic. When I'm communicating with my class, there must be personal interaction also, so that as a guide, as a counselor, as a facilitator, I can create an environment where my students can openly communicate with me. So before selecting any teaching method and any teaching media, as a teacher we must work on the communication and the kind of context that we are going to design or create in a classroom with the help of this communication. So another important information that I would like to deliver in this particular session is that when it comes to communication, the meaning of communication now is changed as per NEP 2020. So NEP 2020 is talking about the competency based education. NEP 2020 is asking for student led classrooms. It is also demanding for integration of technology, and it is also demanding from the different languages that need to be used in a classroom environment. So when I'm saying communication in today's environment or communication in today's learning space, I need to understand that what is the demand of my student population. They want more of team based and group based activities so that there are chances to interact, there are chances to listen to each other, there are chances to deliver their opinion or deliver their perception about the subject that they are going to cover. There must be integration of technology in all the channels of communication. So integration of social media platforms, maybe by creating a WhatsApp group, maybe by creating a Telegram group for a class student, maybe by creating discussion forums for them, maybe by creating informal groups by the students for a specific class so that they can share information. So we need to, yes, so when it comes to the context of the communication as far as the different pedagogical approaches, as a teacher I need to understand that for the student to become lifelong learner, there must be interaction happening all the time in a classroom environment. That is, they are competing with each other, but at the same time they are collaborating with each other. So for this particular generation, we need to have classrooms that are more theme based, more activity based, or more group based by integrating technology. And to develop understanding for a subject, there must be a language in which the subject delivered to the student in their own regional language or maybe in a national language, but ultimately over the period of time we are going to develop them for the global language. But for understanding, we can use any of the language as per the demand of the student. I'm not taking much time for this part of communication. Another important information that we need to understand over here is when it comes to the method, when it comes to the different forms of communication, or when it comes to the different actors that involved, and we said there are teachers, there are medium, there are messages, and there are student. So my second question to all the members in a group, that when it comes to the use of different teaching method, what is the role of the teacher as per your suggestions? What the teacher need to decide? Whenever the teacher is using innovative pedagogical approach, what the teacher need to decide in terms of pedagogy or for the creation of classroom environment. Any member from the group, you can also write in the chat box. The teacher need to act as a moderator. So thank you very much, Prerna ma'am. So as rightly added by Dr. Prerna ma'am, that as a teacher, we need to act as a moderator. So as a teacher, when we are selecting a different pedagogical approach or method, the first thing that I need to decide as a teacher is what subject I'm going to teach. And depending upon the selection of the subject, the teacher need to decide what teaching method is more appropriate. Say, for example, as a teacher from the subject of mathematics, when I'm teaching the subject, maybe I need a whiteboard and a marker where I'm going to develop the subject or develop the topic step by step. And when I'm developing that particular topic in front of my student, it is possible for me to match the pace of my student. So, whether they are understanding it or not, by using the lecture method and by using the medium that is only whiteboard and marker, it is possible for me to know that up to what extent it is possible for my student to go through that information that I'm developing for them. Let's take another example. So, as a teacher from the field of chemical engineering, when I'm dealing with the subject of, say, chemical reaction engineering, or I'm dealing with the subject of industrial safety and hazard. So when I'm dealing with this particular topic and say I'm talking about some industrial accident or some industrial hazard, maybe my medium that I'm going to select a medium, that medium may be a good YouTube video or maybe a recorded incident that is available on any platform that I'm going to display and present to my student that what industrial hazard in chemical industry actually means. And it is not possible for me to draw something on a board if I'm selecting that medium for that kind of a subject. So depending upon the, if a teacher from the civil engineering background, say they are talking about the construction of a bridge, so maybe the laboratory environment where the student can have hands-on experience, they are able to create a prototype model of a bridge in the presence of the faculty, is a good medium to select by the teacher to create that kind of an environment. So, when as a teacher I'm acting as a moderator, I need to understand who my learners are and what are their learning needs and what is the demand of that particular subject. So, depending upon that, I need to select a teaching method. I need to select a pedagogical approach that is more convenient for my subject. The second major component in pedagogy we need to understand is what medium that we are going to select. So when I'm saying what medium we are going to select, medium basically it can be media related factors or it can be the printed or non printed mediums that are available nowadays. So when a teacher is designing a medium for the class, it is again depending upon two different parameter. One is what kind of infrastructure facilities available at the institute, and when I'm selecting a medium, what medium that are mostly available with my students. Say for example, while sitting at Nita Chandigarh, if I'm saying from 15th of December onwards there are classes for all the students, and it is compulsory for the students to come up with all kind of digital devices that are available with them. So for my student population, maybe it is possible for them to carry few of the digital devices so that we can integrate technology in our teaching learning sessions. So maybe in an institution, in a remote location where electricity is not available, or maybe with the student population with whom the digital devices are not available, if I'm asking or if I'm designing my classes by using these kind of medium, those classes are not going to happen for the student. Those classes are for the teachers only. So whenever we are selecting a medium, the first thing that we need to understand, what are the infrastructure facilities or what are the facilities available, and what policies designed at institute level when it comes to the selection of the medium in teaching learning. So if you're giving assignments that are unique by nature and students do not have facility, maybe the basic facility of internet available 24 into 7, students are not going to complete that activity. So when we are selecting medium in a pedagogy, we need to understand what kind of facilities we are providing and what kind of facilities that might be available with our students. Next is message. As a teacher, there can be formal messages in a classroom environment, and there must also be. I'm not saying there can be, there must also be informal messages that is happening in a classroom environment. Most of the time in a classroom, the messages are formal by nature. So, when I'm saying formal by nature, we are making a lesson plan, we are making a detail of minute to minute delivery, that what I'm going to deliver in my class depending upon the time available to me. But yes, at the same time, there must be few of the messages, maybe 5% or 2% of your classroom time for informal messages, where you can develop rapport with your student, where you can develop a human relationship with your student, so that they can interact with you. They can openly say to you that, yes, this particular topic I'm not able to understand today. Can you revise it again for me? This will only happen when there is informal discussion, sometimes happening in a classroom environment, so that students can make humanly connection with the faculty. Another major important stakeholder in teaching learning environment is students. So when we are selecting a teaching pedagogical approaches, we need to understand. So next is the student population. So when we are saying student population, we need to understand the maturity level of the student. So when I'm saying maturity level of the student in pedagogy, there are different approaches that the teacher can create. There can be teacher centered classes, there can be student centered classes, there can be classes based on liberalization. So when I'm saying liberalization classes, these are for more matured learners. These are for higher education institutions where student population is of very good quality, so that teacher can give flexibility and autonomy to the student to complete a topic or to cover a subject. When I'm saying student led classes, most of the time when the basic understanding related to the subject matter is already developed among student population, the teacher can simply go by team based or group based teaching learning method. It is easy for the student to cope up with that kind of learning environment. But when the students are very new to that particular system, so maybe in first semester or second semester, when the students are very new to that kind of education or for that kind of subject, where basic information or basic knowledge related to different subjects must be developed among student population, we need to go by teacher centered classes, where most of the time the control is with the teacher, and teacher is providing the directions to the student that what they need to do for a given activity or for a given task. So initially, when we are selecting the pedagogical methods for the student, we need to go by teacher centered classes, where we are going to develop the foundational information related to the different subject that have been offered to them. Once that basic understanding is developed related to that specific branch or specialization, the teacher can move for student led classrooms, where initially the team based activities need to be given to the student. Team based activity means the smaller set of tasks assigned to the student, where the teacher is providing them corrective action when they are performing that activity or task. And that task or activity need to be of the nature depending upon the timing of the class. So when I'm giving a team based activity, my major perception need to be at the end of the class, the activity need to be completed by the team of the student. So then move for, once that culture, with the help of team based activities, it is possible for the teacher to develop social skills among student population, and then we shift them to group based activities. So student in a group can complete activity. If they want any information from the teacher, they can call the teacher or they can request the teacher to provide their input, and student will submit an activity maybe after 2 to 3 classes. So in group based activity, the activities are of larger in nature. So ultimately, once the team based and group based activities can be performed by the students independently by their own, the liberalization in pedagogy can also be used for a while, where the student can perform few of the activities independently assigned by the teacher of the class. So when it comes to the selection of the pedagogy, The key takeaway here is, as a teacher, you need to understand what kind of environment you are going to create. So when it comes to the creation of the environment, it is also the learning styles and learning needs of the student, but at the same time, the order and comfort of the teacher, that how he or she is able to create a class. When it comes to the creation of the medium or using the medium in a class, when it comes to the creation of the medium in a class, when it comes to selection of the medium in a class, we need to understand that medium totally dependent upon what kind of infrastructure facilities available with you. So depending upon those infrastructure facilities, the teacher can select medium. When it comes to the messages, there must be formal and informal messages happening in the classroom environment. Most of the time, there must be formal messages, but informal messages like humor, story, illustration also need to be there to give a personal touch or connection to your student. And when it comes to the student population, what are their demands initially, or initially we need to start with teacher-led classrooms, and then gradually we need to create an independent learner in a classroom environment. So this is the first part of this particular presentation. Now we move forward to the second part of this presentation, when it comes to the use of or selection of innovative pedagogy. So as a teacher, we said that there must be a creation of experience in a classroom environment, but at the same time we need to understand that NEP is demanding for integration of technology. They are demanding from the different kind of environment that the teacher need to create. That just by buying resources or just by integrating technology, as a teacher, I cannot say that my students are able to learn or my students are able to understand each and everything. So there's a famous saying that you can lead a horse to water, but you cannot make him drink. So the purpose to show this particular slide to you is, doesn't overestimate that whether NEP is asking for integration of all these parameters, and as a management you are buying all kind of fancy resources in educational institution, doesn't mean that students are going to understand and students are able to go through the information in detail. So if we have resources, how we are utilizing those resources for the creation of learning environment, that we need to understand. So the most important question that we all need to answer to ourselves is, in education, where we are heading. So as per NEP 2020, we also earlier also we have explained to all of you that NEP 2020 is demanding for appropriate integration of technology into all levels of education. So when I'm saying the role of the teacher, and Prerna ma'am is saying the role of the teacher is a moderator, the another role of a teacher is to go by policy also, or as per the administration demand. So when as a teacher I'm creating an environment and there is a policy in line, I need to understand that the policy is demanding the integration of technology to support teacher preparation and development, to improve teaching, learning, and evaluation process, to enhance educational access to disadvantages groups, and streamline education planning, administration, and management. So what kind of learning environment after that you are going to create? So there can be two different kind of learning environment that teacher can create. One is the synchronous learning environment, and another is asynchronous learning environment. So when we are saying the synchronous learning environment in simple layman language, when I'm talking about synchronous learning environment, when the teacher is present at the same time the learners are. So any example of synchronous learning environment by any member? Any example of synchronous learning environment? So, group discussion is a method of teaching mainly for the management branch. So, when I'm saying synchronous learning environment and a learning environment, means the traditional classroom is the best example of synchronous learning environment, where the teacher is present at the same time as the learner. Another learning environment is an online platform where it is possible for the teacher as well as to the students to interact anytime with each other. So at present, when we are using this Google platform, and it is possible for me to call any of the faculty member by name when I'm asking question to all of you. And it is also possible for all the members in the group to interrupt me, to ask any question to me during this particular session. So we all are present at the same time in this learning environment. So synchronous learning environment, in a traditional setup, it is a traditional concrete classroom where students are sitting in horizontal lines and in front of the teacher, and teacher is developing the content as per the level of the student, or any platform, any online media. Best example may be the Zoom or the WebEx or the Google platform, where it is possible for me to create an environment where the participants or the teacher can interact anytime with each other. But let's discuss a case. Is it possible for me, say for example, on a Google platform, I'm creating a class for maybe 250 students. So those students are from the third semester. So is it possible for me to provide them opportunity to interact with me anytime? 250 students available with me on a platform. Is it possible for me to conduct or create a learning environment that is smooth in nature? Yes, for 250 student, is it possible for me to give them this much of flexibility in a class? Any member from the group? No, because when I'm creating this kind of a learning environment, in the first discussion, we said the learning needs, the level of the student, and the learning demands need to kept in mind. So if this kind of freedom in a synchronous learning environment I'm giving to 250 students of third semester, there may be more of informal discussions in the chat box rather than discussing about the content matter. So when it comes to the creation of the learning environment or selection of the medium for pedagogical approach, I need to understand that whether this particular environment is suitable for my student population or not. So when I'm creating this kind of, or I'm using this kind of platform for this much class, maybe the chat option is not available with the student. Maybe I need to give them some of the netiquettes. Netiquette means some of the online policies, disciplinary measures before I'm starting my session for all of them. So depending upon the nature and level of the student, the teacher can create or select the medium. But certainly there are different barriers related to the synchronous learning. The first thing is it limit flexibility. So I'm sure that at present also there are many of the faculty members who are busy with their administrative and other responsibility. So if it is a class that is created with this synchronous kind of a learning environment, and we know the schedule is fixed and we all are working on the same time, and sometimes there are great chances that we are going to miss the session or we are going to miss the content. So these are the different challenges with the synchronous learning environment. So that is why there is a synchronous learning environment. So in asynchronous learning environment, the teacher is not present at the same time as the learners. So when I'm saying the teacher is not present at the same time as the learner, the best example may be the different open online courses that are available on nowadays. So there are self-paced courses also available on Swim platform. There are scheduled courses also that the teacher or student can go select their time of choice and complete the course content. But the major demand of asynchronous learning environment is the integration of social media. So why integration of social media in these kind of learning environment? Because somewhere as a learner, when it comes to the independent path of learning, that learning behavior is not developed yet among our population. So we need to send them lot of reminders. We need to create number of groups to make them aware that what is happening in that particular subject, what is happening in that online platform, what is happening in that online course. I would like to share my own personal experience over here. Since we are launching these MOOC courses to the faculty members since long, from the year I think 2019, we are offering different massive open online courses to the faculty members. And if the registration in that particular program is, suppose there are 5,000 faculty members registered for that particular program, and only maybe 900 or maybe 1,300 faculty members are possible, 1,300 faculty members are able to complete that particular program. So those are the faculty members to whom we consider the matured part of that teaching learning process. Those teachers are not able to cope up with the demand of their work along with the subject they decided to complete using any MOOC platform. So in asynchronous learning environment, the major demand is information transfer by integrating social media in those learning environment. So social media plays an important role when it specifically comes to online teaching by the creation of asynchronous learning environment. But the major problem in asynchronous learning environment is the capacity building. For whom the capacity building is required? Yes, for asynchronous learning environment, or maybe when you're offering MOOC programs to your student, the pedagogical approaches, you're offering a digital pedagogy approach by selecting different teaching method. But what kind of capacity building is essential? Yes, any member? What kind of capacity building? It is the capacity building at the part of the teacher. It is the capacity building at the part of the student also. Teacher means how you are going to create that subject, how you are going to develop that MOOC program. At the part of the student, that when there is assignment, when there is an announcement on that portal, the student must be well aware of, and student is able to complete that task or assignment on time. So that kind of capacity building is essential. Yes, Nidhi ma'am, rightly added by you that yes, capacity to complete, relate with that particular subject, that how you are going to develop that particular subject, how many videos must be recorded by the teacher. When it comes to the development of the content, what kind of content that you are going to develop. It is not that you are just copy pasting the material from different internet websites, or maybe from the different reference books and uploading it on the platform. You need to create your own content. So capacity building at the part of the teacher at large, and also at the part of the students also. What kind of infrastructure facility is available? Suppose 40 ACT is saying that 40% of the courses need to be given or floated to the student by the use of these MOOC courses that are available. So for that, is there any IT policy that is available at institute, and that if my student want to have access 24 into 7 to these different platforms, maybe the Swayam platform, is that facility available with my student at the campus, in the institute, or at their hostel places? So that kind of policy need to be there. If my students are using the laboratory facilities, IT laboratories in the institute, maybe after the institute timing, what kind of facility the institute is providing to them? So there are many things that as an institute we need to think of, that when we are creating this asynchronous kind of learning environment. If your students are not matured enough, maybe for first semester, second and third semester student, and we are offering asynchronous learning environment to them, is there any faculty assigned for that particular subject, so that that faculty guide and direct the students to complete the activities or task that is assigned to them on that Swayam program? So when it comes to an infrastructure facility, there are many elements or many things as a teacher or as a department, as a management, we need to think of before offering these kind of programs to the student. If your students are not able to understand the content that may be designed by me as a MOOC coordinator, what kind of remedial classes or what kind of physical interaction with those students within the institute that is happening with the help of other faculty members, so that they are able to understand that content fully. So when we are using this asynchronous learning environment, and specifically for the student population who is not matured enough, what kind of policy at institute level you are making and giving to them to create a support system to them? Another important element that we need to understand is the stakeholders. So, when it comes to the stakeholder, what is the demand of the stakeholder? Stakeholders are the students, stakeholders are the families of those students, stakeholders are the industry or the work organization in which the students are going to recruit in near future. So, what are their demand? What kind of population, what kind of skills they are demanding for? So after industry 4 or 5.0, the education system is working on education 4 and 5.0. So what kind of demands are there that need to be clearly analyzed before creating these kind of environment? Flexibility to the faculty. So if a faculty is working for a MOOC program, it means that faculty is handling an additional load not only in terms of the developing the whole subject, maybe with the help of the team or maybe without the help of the team, but when the faculty is developing for the content, when the faculty is designing different assignments, when the faculty is responding to the 5,000 or the 500 emails he or she is getting from the different students enrolling for that program, the faculty is responding to those email, it means some additional information, some additional load is to be provided by that particular faculty. So in terms of work timing, what kind of flexibility is provided to that particular faculty, that also need to be think of by the department. Work culture, what kind of work culture is there in the department? Are you working as a team? Are you working as an individual faculty in a synchronous learning environment? And yes, generation gap also plays an important role. Why we are talking about generation gap? Because at present in educational institution, as senior most position, there may be the faculty members who are working, those are not much aware of the creation of the technology. They can use technology, they can take or engage session by using technology, but if there is any problem when they're using the technology, it is not possible for them to dismantle from the one source of technology and shift to the another source of technology. So there must be a supporting system, maybe an IT team working back end for that asynchronous learning environment, helping the teacher or helping the faculty to conduct session or to deliver session in a smooth manner by providing them the technical support. That is also the demand of this asynchronous learning environment. So my next question before I move further is that when it comes to the selection of synchronous learning environment or asynchronous learning environment, as per you, what is your choice? As a faculty, are you go for a synchronous kind of a learning environment, or as per the demand of the students nowadays, you are more inclined towards the creation of asynchronous learning environment? Any teacher, any member, what is your choice? Is it asynchronous or synchronous? Synchronous learning environment, because we are able to understand students better. So thank you very much, Nidhi ma'am, for the question. Dr. Suresh sir, Chauhan said synchronous. So why we are selecting synchronous? Ultimately, it is very easy for us as a teacher for the creation of synchronous learning environment. Because if I am taking an example of the traditional classroom where the teacher is available all the time with the student, most of the time in this particular environment the control is with the teacher. So in online and learning environment also, when I'm using the synchronous kind of an approach, it is possible for me to expel any of the student from my class because control is available with me, and most of the time I can use class for delivery purposes. But when it comes to the asynchronous learning environment, as a teacher I need to put additional effort to develop that subject on a specific platform as per the demands of that platform. I need to develop a subject first. I need to have recorded sessions for that particular subject. I need to provide a very crisp and structured information on that online platform. And when I'm using asynchronous learning environment, again, it is the choice of my student. It is their behavior that what kind of learning style they are going to use. So they may be more demanding, they may be less demanding, they may created their own independent path of learning. They do not need me as a faculty. Once the content is developed, available to them, They can go through that content by their own. If there is any doubt, they can use another resources to clarify their doubt. They do not need me as a teacher to support them each and every time. But when we are saying that we are more comfortable with synchronous learning environment, we need to understand that if we are in AICT approved institutions, or maybe in other UGC approved institutions also, there are guidelines that the teachers are going to offer MOOC programs to the students. In AICT approved institution, 40% of the courses need to be offered using these asynchronous learning environment, and UGC is also designing and developing many of the programs for the students where they can learn for information. And when NEP is talking about multiple entry and multiple exit system, students can select for asynchronous learning environment also for the completion or for the coverage of any credit. So as a teacher, when I'm saying that I'm more comfortable in synchronous kind of a learning environment, I need to understand that as per the demand of the student population, we need to develop and design a synchronous learning environment also. Initially, maybe at a smaller level, maybe at institute level, but ultimately we need to have the habit of using this asynchronous learning environment and giving facilities to the student to use such kind of platforms. So initially, if we are more comfortable with synchronous kind of a learning environment, we need to go by the approach of blended learning. So the best innovative pedagogy method that I'm considering nowadays is most appropriate for the teaching learning environment in our country is blended learning. So where in many of the institution, all kind of facilities are not available, the infrastructure is not available. Our student behavior is that they are in the nature of, or they are in the habit of memorizing information or more, thinking less about that particular information. When as a teacher, as a department, as an institute, we are in the habit of spoon feeding that information among our student population, so we need to match with the pace. So blended learning approach is a best teaching method where we can club synchronous as well as asynchronous kind of learning environment. So when it comes to the blending of synchronous and asynchronous learning environment, it is not again as per the choice of the teacher, or it is also not again as per the flexibility available with the teacher and the student. In a structured manner for a given subject, you need to think of that in a given subject, how many classes the student need to be there with me in a class. There must be physical interaction, there must be development of the content when the students are available with me, so that it is easy for me to collect feedback. It is easy for me to obtain feedback from the student population also, that whether they are able to understand that subject or not. So synchronous learning environment where the students are very new for that particular information. When there is exposure of a new information to the student, I would suggest to go by synchronous kind of a learning environment, so that in that particular classroom the student can ask as many as questions to the teacher, and teacher is here to respond to the student, teacher is there to provide them the corrective measure. And once the student, some sort of information is developed among student, we can shift them to asynchronous learning environment. Asynchronous learning environment, suppose unit 1 and unit 2 is completed in a traditional classroom, and there is a module developed by the teacher for the unit 3, because teacher now think of that after covering the content in unit 1 and unit 2, it is possible for my class student to go through this particular module independently. So for that independent module, the teacher can create a module in a format. The student need to go independently for that particular module, and once the period of that module is over, say to you have given 10 days to the student to complete that module 3. Module 3 is nothing but the unit 3 that is developed by you. So independently they have completed that module 3. Again, in a class there is a physical interaction means one to one interaction with the teacher and the student related to that particular module 3. So if they are facing any problem, if there is any difficulty, any doubt, one or two classes may be organized by the teacher to clarify the doubts. So gradually, by shifting to this particular approach, synchronous or synchronous, for a given subject, the teacher can develop the habit among student population for independent learning on different platforms. So initially we can go by the approach of pedagogy, that is blended learning. But for that, what the teacher need to do is the teacher need to develop a content. Initially the teacher need to develop the content in team. So in a department, maybe when the subject is assigned to an individual faculty, maybe the subject is assigned to the team of the faculty member, and team of the faculty members sit together and think of that how much content it is possible for us to develop in a synchronous learning environment, and let's work together, develop that content and give that information to the student and float the subject in blended mode of learning. So in a blended mode of learning, there are certain parameters that as a teacher we need to understand. One is the content, another is a schedule of that particular program, how many assessments are there for the subject, and how you are going to create interaction. And how you are going to achieve this? It is the first capacity building. I'm talking about the skills that as a teacher that we need to develop. The first skill as a teacher that we need to develop is teaching online. So as a teacher, when it comes to teaching online to your student, you need to create a policy at departmental level. So if there is an online class, a very minute detail, so maybe it's a video recorded session, or maybe it's not a video recorded, you are delivering a session where video is essential for the students and for the teacher also. So maybe before the initiation of the class, or the department suddenly makes a policy that whenever you are attending an online program, it is compulsory for all the faculty members to take screenshots of every session. When the teacher is delivering a session to you, and you are listening to that particular session, the screenshot where your video is recorded all the time. So that is a simple policy that is designed. Or maybe at NITER we make a policy that if it is an ICT program, it is compulsory for all the teachers who are participating all the time during the course, the video will be on for the teachers who are participated in the program. So this is just a disciplinary measure, that if my students are physically available with me in my online class or not, as a teacher I need to check. So ultimately for the student population, when it comes to teaching them online, some of the policies need to be designed at department level. So if they are taking any subject online, whether they are going through that subject in detail or not, what kind of policies at departmental level you are designing, and how you are checking their presence on those particular platforms. What kind of communication skill? So if it is a video recorded as a module developed for the student, video need not to be more than 5 to 7 minutes. If the video timing is more than 10 to 15 minutes, the students are not going to engage in that particular video. So smaller clips, crisp kind of information, a very organized and structured kind of information in those videos that we are going to given to the students for this kind of environment. What kind of learning space? So if the student is going by the synchronous kind of a learning environment, it may be a concrete classroom, it may be the laptop of the student where internet facility need to be there. If the student is go by the asynchronous learning environment, cafeteria, any transportation source, the personal space of the student. So any space can act as a learning space, depending upon how much engagement is there in that particular subject. When it comes to the interaction, how many interaction in a semester you are going to create for that particular subject, whether it's an synchronous online learning environment or a synchronous learning environment. Interaction with the student is must, and there must be one faculty assigned to that particular subject who is going to clarify the doubts of the student if there are any. So the four things that we need to understand: The teacher need to have capacity building in terms of teaching online, how you are going to develop a content, what kind of scripts you are going to write for your video recorded session. When it comes to the video recording, what kind of delivery need to be there, how much information that you are going to deliver with the help of the video recorded session, and how much information you are going to provide in the content. When it comes to the supplementing information, what kind of supplementary information you are going to provide to the students. Teaching online also need to understand what kind of policies that you are going to design at departmental level or at institute level. Communication, it is not only the offline communication, but it also the online communication that comes into picture. In an online learning environment, how you motivate your students to read something related to that particular subject. When students are listening all the time in the online sessions, how you motivate them to speak something, what kind of activities, what kind of tasks you are going to give to them so that they can participate in that also. What kind of learning space is essential for the institute to create, how many interactions are there in a semester, and how who is the faculty responsible for those interactions. So that need to be decided. When it comes to the content, what kind of content, simply it is as per the level of the student. So as per the level of the student means, sometimes when we are offering these kind of programs to the student at institute level or at departmental level, we need to provide them tailor made content. Tailor made content means my student a simplified version of that particular content, so that my students are able to understand that. So content, the teacher need to select the content, and depending upon the nature of the content, the tailor made content need to be provided to the student. If internet facility is not available with the student 24 into 7, the printed form of material, the printed content need to be provided to the students by the department or by the institute. If the content is available, if the reference materials are available in your institute laboratory, or library, or with the student, what kind of additional information as a department you need to provide to your students, so that students come prepared with that information. When it comes to the schedule, and specifically when it comes to the schedule of blended learning environment, so the subject that you are going to teach in a traditional classroom as well as in a asynchronous learning environment, how you are going to create the schedule. It is not the traditional kind of timetable that we are going to design. All the department faculty need to sit together, work together, that how many subjects you are going to offer in a dual mode, that is blended mode, how many subject in a traditional classroom, how many courses that you are going to offer in asynchronous learning environment. Likewise, the schedule of the department need to be prepared. When it comes to an assessment, NEP is saying there must be continuous assessment of student performance. It is very easy and possible for us in a traditional classroom, but when the students are available with us in online platform, or maybe in blended or asynchronous learning environment, how you are going to plan for assessment, what kind of assessment is it possible for you to create. It is not possible for you to always have a written test or a written assignment or a presentation or a seminar, because you are using diversity of teaching learning platform. There must be diversity of assessment that need to be offered to the student. Here again, I would like to share my personal experience. There is one teaching method, gaming and simulation, and there is one private university who are they are saying that they are using gaming and simulation as a teaching approach. And when I visited that particular university, how the teachers are using that gaming and simulation activity, they are simply writing few of the content on the plain paper chats, and they are distributing it among students, and students are performing that activity, and they are assigning it as gaming and simulation session. So that is not gaming and simulation approach, that need a entirely different kind of a setup when you're using this kind of teaching and assessment approaches. So whenever I'm using a teaching method, I need to understand what is the demand of that teaching method. When I'm saying the presentation skill of teaching, presentation skill of teaching means when I'm dealing with my student and I'm using a presentation skill of teaching method, When I'm presenting something to them, notes must be provided to the student related to that particular presentation, because on a presentation there may be, like now I'm writing just 4 to 5 bullet point, and after the class is over my student need to revise that information. My students are not going to assimilate all the information that is delivered by me. They need some of the information with them, so that whenever they search for that information must be available with them. So presentation method of teaching, the first essential demand is handouts of that presentation need to be provided to the student, so that later on they can go through that information. When I'm saying numbered head method of teaching means, as a teacher my first preparation is how I'm going to divide my students into number of teams. When I'm saying fishball method of discussion, the first essential requirement is my classroom furniture must not be fixed, it must be movable, so that I can create a fishball kind of sitting arrangement. When I'm saying jigsaw method of teaching, or I'm saying think pair share method of teaching, that needs a different kind of infrastructure facility and different kind of a teaching approach. So whatever I'm assessing by the using of think pair share method of teaching, my assessment questions need to be of that nature. So when I'm saying we are using innovative pedagogical approaches and using assessment depending upon those teaching method, I need to find out what are the essential requirements of those teaching approaches. Then it comes to interaction. How many interactions need to be there? It totally dependent upon the curriculum of that particular subject. Depending upon the curriculum, you need to identify for how many topics and after how many units there must be interaction with the students that is there at institute level. So content, schedule, assessment, interaction. So it is not easy, it require planning at departmental level. So till now we are working as an individual faculty, but in the time to come I think we need to work as a team of faculty member, developing a subject, developing content and developing assessments for that particular subject, so that it is possible for us to cope up with the demands of the system. Another important thing that we need to understand here at institute level. Firstly, we were talking about departmental level and what the teacher need to do. For the second, what kind of capacity building or what are the different elements we need to consider. And lastly, how to blend effectively. These are the three important parameters for which at institute level we need to work for. The first one is the readiness. So readiness for whom? At institute level, if I'm thinking about this kind of an environment, for whom I need to check for readiness? Is it the teacher? Is it the student? Is it the department? Or is it the institute as a whole? Yes, there is another question also. Can we say blended learning is just like the online education we are providing? No, Nidhi ma'am, blended learning is not the online education that we are providing. Blended learning, as we earlier said, in a blended learning, we have to make a plan. We need to do the analysis of that particular subject curriculum. We need to identify how many topics or how many unit is it possible for my student to go through in detail with complete understanding, that I will give them by the use of online platform. But for the subject content that I'm thinking is very complex for my students to understand, my presence as a faculty must be there when the students are developing for that particular content. We need to go by the traditional method of teaching, that is in a traditional classroom where one-to-one interaction must be there. So first you need to completely have analysis of that particular subject syllabus. You need to identify what are the different topics that you can give in an online learning environment and what are the topics where you as a teacher need to be there. So likewise, you make a schedule of that particular subject. You need to develop the content for the online teach sessions also. And then ultimately you go by that particular subject in a blended mode. So it needs a preparation. So that is why I'm saying that it is not possible for the individual faculty to develop a subject in a blended mode of learning. Team of faculty members can develop a subject first and then float it through the students inclusively for all. Thank you very much, Prerna ma'am, and thank you very much, Nidhi ma'am. I hope I answered your question. So when it comes to the readiness, as institute level we need to ready. Readiness in terms of the context, readiness in terms of finances, readiness in terms of commitment, readiness in terms of the role of the institute. So when I'm saying the role of the institute, what is the mandate of your institute? Vision and mission statement of your institute need to be kept in mind when you are creating, not blended any kind of learning environment. When you are creating, it must be in line with your mandate. Readiness mainly in terms of the content and mainly in terms of culture. So why we're talking about culture here also? Because in India we have diversity of student population with different cultures. They have different previous experiences as far as their education is concerned. So depending upon the cultural aspects also, we need to design subject and courses in such a manner that my student population is able to cope up with. So if they are not from the cultural background where they have experiences in their, maybe at a school level they do not have much experiences related to the technology integrated session, or online teaching learning is very new for them, so that is a cultural shock for that particular candidate when you are offering directly human program that is available online. So readiness for that cultural acceptability and adaptability also need to be considered by the institute. So when I'm saying readiness in terms of context, what is the context of your teaching? If it is the subject for diploma level student, for BTech level, master's level, or is it the subject for the PhD coursework? When the level of the course or the student upgrade, the context of teaching is going to be changed. Finances are specifically involved because we need to buy many resources for the development of the course. When it comes to preparing the schedule of the department also, in terms of classes organization, again we need to keep the resources in mind, commitment of the teacher and of the student, and how the institute is creating a support system not only for the student population but also for the teacher. Suppose your teacher want to develop a program or develop a module, uh, maybe simply the video recorder session, as an faculty you need to develop what kind of team available with you in terms of technical support, in terms of video editing and recording, maybe in terms of video script writing, maybe in terms of vetting of that video, maybe. So institute need to create a support system so that these kind of initiative can be taken by the faculty. Another important information when we need to have is intensity. Up to what extent it is possible for me to adopt. We cannot say blindly that all the teachers need to develop the programs or develop the courses that must be available within the next 6 months or maybe within the next 1 year for the student population. There are other work assignments also. How much adaptability need to be there? Up to what extent it is possible for you to plan and design for such kind of courses? So the best framework here is conceive, develop, implement and orient. Initially start at a smaller level, and then once the teacher and the supporting team is able to do these work very efficiently, we need to extend it on a larger level. So conceive, develop, implement, and orient. Impact. So blindly, when we are giving these kind of assignments to the teacher and to the student, ultimately, when we are not doing an impact study, that whether they are making any difference in teaching learning activity at student level, if the score of evaluation you are not uh, doing an impact kind of study, that when the subject is offered to the student in an offline mode and when the subject is offered in an online mode, what is the impact on the scores of the student? That also somewhere need to be evaluated at departmental level, and likewise the improvement in the different subjects need to be done. So simply when it comes to the blended learning, it is not the mixed mode of teaching, it is not hybrid learning, it is not technology mediated and enhanced learning. Nidhi ma'am, you are asking only this to me. Blended learning required a foolproof planning at institute level. For this, we first need to prepare for a subject, then we need to go by this approach offered to the student. So this is the complex adaptive blended learning model, and the major six elements in this model are teacher, content, technology, learning support, learner, and institute. So, when it comes to the preparation of the institute, it is the strategy, support, service, and infrastructure that the institute must provide. When it comes to the teacher, Prerna ma'am was saying the teacher need to act as a moderator. The teacher also need to act as a facilitator. The teacher also need to act as a guide. The teacher also need to act as advisor. When it comes to the development of the content, there may be students in your class who are naturalistic learners. Naturalistic learner means they are intelligent enough to go for that content by their own. So for those students, there must be individual learning path at institute level. There must be cooperative learning. There must be problem-based learning environment. There must be interactive or cooperative kind of a learning environment. There must be deeper learning also for few of the student. When it comes to the learning support for the faculty members specifically, there must be academic support and there must be technical support need to be provided to them if you need to go by innovative pedagogical approaches as blended learning. When it comes to buying different resources and using different infrastructure resources, you need to go by technology for sure. So when it comes to the technology, there can be synchronous learning platforms also, and there can be asynchronous learning media and medium also available with the teacher and student. So when it comes to the blended learning, what we need for blended learning, in short, we need trained faculty, we need quality students, we need learning spaces, we need flexibility, and we need technology. Thank you very much, all the